To order. It is Tuesday, November 9th, 2021 at 7 a.m. It's the regular meeting of the Oaks Public Schools Board here at the conference room and I think on Zoom, right? Yeah, good. Okay, we got it going. Good deal. All right, the meeting will come to order and we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The agenda was in your packet. Not aware of any additions or changes. Anybody else? Sewer. Can't have a meeting without talking about a sewer. Where should we put that? Suppose it should be an action item.
Yeah, in case you decide to make an action.
All right, we'll put it as item E, action items, and it may just slide right into your report. Huh? All right, with that addition, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented with that one addition? Rosendahl moves to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Nagel seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Visitors present today, we have staff members, the Lynches, and Dave Erlin, and Anna, and Brandon must be joining us by, okay, Brandon's joining us by Zoom. And that looks like all we have other than the board and Mr. Gibson necessary. So welcome and thank you for coming. Public communication, there were a couple of items in our packet. Thank you for our business from Computer Express. And thank you from Grace Lutheran Youth for the use of a bus to take a group of youth to Early Scare. All right, anything else on that? All right, the reports were in your packets. I believe the transportation and maintenance report came yesterday. Any comments, questions on the administrative reports? I thought it was interesting that one of our two food suppliers is
Not sure
Using
if
one-
interesting is the word I would put there, but
worker/food shortages.
We're one of the lucky schools. A lot of them they didn't have any vendors because some of them quit accepting new schools and new accounts. So luckily we were already established with US Foods. Otherwise, yeah, they'd be scrambling because of the cash wave bowing out of the state co-op.
only can eat lots of potatoes.
It's true, we have lots of potatoes.
I could find some onions.
There you go, potatoes in it.
All right. Got the technology report. It had lots of interesting things. Activities. The volleyball held out last night for 4-set victory. It looks like the Game Time sponsorships is successful, going well. And we've swapped the elementary and high school concert dates because of a scheduling conflict. Personalized learning coach was very thorough. Anything you want to highlight for us, Mrs. Self?
No, if I didn't know which concert dates, I better write that down. You were in on that one. Huh? No, I think there's.
How about you, Mr. Beta? Anything you'd like to highlight for us?
Give a shout out to the kids for October Students of the Month. We had Sway Jackson and David Bakke in the junior high. For high school, we had Samantha McCary and Brandon Peters. So 4 excellent students that got recognized for working well within a group. So shout out to them for October Student of the Month. And then I guess last shout out to be to the staff and students for being recognized by US News and World Report as top 30% of junior highs in North Dakota, but number 7 in the state. So I thought that was pretty awesome to give that recognition to our students and staff. And we got the correct plaque finally delivered to us. They sent us the incorrect one, so that'll be displayed somewhere shortly.
Thank you. I'd be interested if you could send me more information about what criteria was used for the selection. You know, I don't need to know now, but I'd be interested in knowing more about that.
If I think Maureen sent a link out with that on Facebook that attaches, and I think that goes, it'll take you to the ranking site and go through how they rank schools.
Very good. And I noticed it was for years 2018-19 and 2019-20.
Correct.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. Well, should we get to the superintendent's report?
Where you want to start?
At the top.
I forgot to bring those carbon solutions, summit solutions. I did go to that hearing that would happen.
Yeah.
That was, I don't know, to me, it was kind of a dud, to be honest with you. It was kind of more or less a kickoff to kind of start the process of negotiating with farmers. I think maybe I was just too early and I jumped the gun a little too soon, but I asked them, what is it going to affect us at the school? And it sounds like basically the purchase of the land that they purchased through, it's about 50 feet. It's really, they're purchasing easement, but they purchased the actual land, which raises the value of that land. And that's how we're going to end up with a kickback here. At one point, the principals and I were visiting, and we were a little concerned because we were like, wow, are we ready to have that many more students coming into our school? Because they were talking like 450 new employees right here in school, or in the Oaks area. And I was like, wow, that's a major jump. Are we going to have enough capacity and everything else to be able to make this work? What are we going to need to do? And we were starting to kind of game plan in our head before this, and then we went to the meeting, and it's actually going to be about 4 employees increase. So it was quite a, like I said, kind of a dud in our minds, but still we will get a little bit of a kickback because if they do move forward, that land that's purchased to put the pipe in, that will increase the taxable value. So we want to make sure we keep an eye on that, especially as we get closer to that 60 mils. That could push us over that to where we're dropping. I believe it was about a 2-year before that project starts to happen. I don't know how when land purchasing is probably going to be before that, but that would be one of the beginning parts of that. So we just kind of want to make sure we keep a close eye on that as that continues to move forward for tax evaluation. I might have Dave jump in. The other stuff is kind of brought forward there before I go to the school board association, in case the other 2 that went wanted to jump in on that piggyback too. I'm going to bring Dave back in a little bit just to help with and maybe Ryan, you can help me too, just because it is confusing. The new plumbing situation, what happened was we had a pipe collapse, and we could talk more about it later if you remember that, but we did have a pipe collapse down underneath the basement of the high school. It is one of the lines that this summer he did go in and clean out. So I've sent a couple videos to you guys to kind of watch, and you can see the before, the after of the cleaning, and then we had it sucked out this last time because he doesn't like to run stakes down. We had Kevin come down. Kevin was here within I would say about an hour and a half. Is that about right, Dave? After we called him, he was here pretty quick, knowing that we need to get something going so that we can have water and sewage water going everywhere. So he did get here pretty quick to come and assess that, and we found out there was plugged at that point. Came back the next night, we had things shut down that we needed to shut down, and so then the next day he came back and we reassessed it. That's when Ryan came and just helped go through it. It's extremely confusing down there. There's 5 different lines that run to the main, and one of those 5 is plugged, which closes off our bathroom in the special ed department. It closes off a sink up in Larry's room, and then I see one other thing. I just went through them too. What's the other one?
The back of the restroom on the 2nd floor.
Oh, the concessions.
In the concession.
So the concessions right now, the concessions are shut down, bathroom in special ed and Larry's sink up at my head's office. So those are all shut down as of right now. We can't use those. line has collapsed from the recording. You guys all see that. So, you know, that's collapsed. I'm not going to go too deep into it unless you guys want me to go further, but
Why don't we cover that when we get to the action items?
okay. And then the last thing is we attended a school board association. I did send an email out yesterday just to kind of recap that. Instead of taking a bunch of time this morning, I figured I would recap it there. It was a good conference. I won't lie. I was hit up a lot about what was happening up in Williston, and it's like that's Williston's problem, not mine anymore. So it was a little bit different, but at the same time, it was kind of bombarding with all the people asking all those questions about it there. I thought there was a very good speaker that second day. He kicked off, or was the first day that he kicked it off. He talked about trust and some of the different characters of traits of trust. I didn't even know that in that list. The law seminar went really well. Should have just pulled up the legal side, the law seminar with the one that probably stuck out to me was the COVID. It really confirmed that we're doing a lot of things correctly, and it's very similar to what a lot of other schools are doing, especially with the re-entry plans being reviewed this month for a lot of districts. It was kind of nice to have that confirmation behind us saying that we're doing a lot of things right. The FERPA, and there was one on FERPA, and
Oh, you did.
yeah, just my mind's having a lot of brain parts. The FERPA piece and the HIPAA was interesting to know and just look at it. And as you were listening, it was like, okay, we're doing that, we're making sure that's covered. And it just really reassured. And to me, that's what this conference really helped me with, is it reassured me that we are doing the right things here at home at this point. Legally, as that side goes. So, I don't know if you two want to add any more to that, because we didn't really put any item on here.
I wasn't able to go to the last seminar because I was the new member one, but I want to say thank you to April and Sonia and Dave for just preparing me as well as they did, because a lot of that stuff presented in the member seminar was reviewed. So I appreciate that.
See, we're doing things right here.
Yeah, said it was very confirming.
I mean, yeah, it was a good seminar. I helped with registration and everything like that. I liked the speakers, and yeah, we learned a little bit more information in the business manager section about hiring practices. Public schools don't need to advertise for job openings. So that was something new. They gave you information about that. Yeah, and you learned about hiring practices and then student contracts, which a lot of us didn't realize that we can get reimbursement for some of our contracts that for student placement in other districts.
In other districts.
So like foster kids.
Oh,
and
I
different
see, I
things like
see.
that, 'cause we
Oh,
have to
okay.
pay tuition.
That kind of
So,
student
yeah,
contracts.
yeah.
I see, okay,
Yeah, so we learned a lot.
great. Okay. All right, anything else in your report, or anything anybody wanted to ask about? You covered the summit carbon thing, the learning loss tornado power hour, instructional rounds, the para position. So we got the elementary position filled.
Yes, the elementary is filled, the secondary is still open.
Do we have a sub working in that area then? Or is it-
I'd have to ask Brendan to confirm, but I don't think so. I think we've been kind of running without it. We're more or less been running short all the way across the board because we're short on student teacher or substitute teachers and subs all the way across the board. So if you guys know anybody, I guess I'm up for a shout out that we will take anybody that has enough qualifications, more or less is 48 credits. And at that point, we can look, give them a license.
What is our policy on allowing personal leave? They just take it whenever they want.
That we really can't limit when they're sick or anything like that.
Well, sick leave,
mostly-
I
It's
get.
mostly sick. There's been a couple that have went for vacation, but pretty hard to limit those.
In the negotiated contract, there's that clause that says that if we have so many subs in the building, that the principals have the right to deny that other leave.
Right.
I mean, unless they're sick or whatever, but I think it's like 20%.
20% in each building, I
Something
think,
like
and
that.
that's more than you think, because the other day we had a go out again on Friday. We just do the best we can, but you're running at half staff, it
Yeah.
stinks.
Right. And I don't know if it's so much like our employees that are sick all the time, it's that their kids are sick, and that's all part of that sick.
Right, I get that. I just was wondering how personally, because from what I understand, there's a lot of them that use volunteers.
All right, so that completes the administrative reports, item 6, A through G. Is there a motion to approve the reports that we've received? Heimbach moves to approve the administrative reports. Is there a second?
Second.
Thorpe seconds. Any discussion? Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Action items, the audits,
Do you want me to take this one?
please.
Okay, so back in June, we had approved for Harold Rotunda to complete our audit for 19, 20, and 2021. Over the course of the last 6 months or so, there's been discussion between him and the state auditor, and there's a lot of friction there. And we have come to light that the state auditor will not be accepting his audit moving forward. He has some corrective actions that need to be completed. So luckily, we haven't had it in the past, but a lot of other schools have had to go back and redo their audits that he has completed in the last 5 years. I did contact Priscilla and asked her if she'd be willing to do it one more time, but she did not continue her education credits on, so she wasn't able to do it. She did give me a couple names, so I did reach out to Nadine Julson, is that how you say it? In Wapaton, and there was an accounting firm in Jamestown and Bismarck, but Julson's were the only ones who replied back. They are able to take us on. They've taken on a couple of other schools too. Unfortunately, their bid is $19,500 for the 2 months.
And our Rotunda bid was what? 5 or 6?
Around 6, yeah.
That's the reason it's cheaper.
The only thing, and a lot of the firms I talked to, they'll squeeze all, as many schools as they can, but a lot of them do tax season. So they can start our audit and then they'll stop, finish the tax season and then pick it up. They might not take the audit till probably May or June of next year. And that's common with a lot of the different firms that I've talked to.
Remind me, please, April, you started with us in the middle of the school year. What date was that? January 1, approximately of 19.
Yeah.
And so did we not have an audit at the end of that year?
Yes, it was 18, 19. So 17, 18, 18, 19.
Okay.
So it is.
Okay, so you have been our only auditor.
Yeah.
We did have an audit. Yeah, not at the end of Tom's time here, but at, you know, at the end of your
Yeah.
first half year.
So it was decided of why do twice, and so then we just waited to the end of the school year.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay, so we've had only one auditor, so that transition time is cleaned up. So we are needing to act on this,
Yes.
right? And we have no other, you reached out to 2 other firms and this is all you got.
yep, and actually this is pretty much the cheapest one.
Right, because we had other bids when we accepted the Rotunda bid and those were this much and more,
Yeah.
right?
Yep, some of them were in the 20,000. But yeah, I know that a lot of the business managers are kind of upset about how the state auditor handled this. And then moving forward, just the fees, because there's so many schools that are smaller than us. And now they have to try to figure out how to do $20,000, fee for.
I don't know, a lot of them paid if you're.
Yes. Yep. Yes, it's kind of a mess.
And is there an option to have the state auditors department complete our audit?
There is, but I was told it's hard to get on as a new client. They've done it for years and years. They keep their existing schools and cities and whatever. But moving forward, because they're short staffing, that they usually try to make sure that you've exhausted all of your other options before going to the state.
And certainly there's a fee.
Yeah.
in-
Oh, yeah.
It's not that they do it for nothing.
Nope.
it started as it was the state auditor that did all the school audits, and then it got to be too much, so that's why they started doing it. Then Harold ended up taking over almost half of that. That's where I think he's got some. Yep. Oh, yeah.
And he did a lot of the smaller schools to kind of help out with the pricing and everything like that. So, yeah. Kind of a mess, but
All right, board, that's the background. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the bid.
Sheila Nagel moves to accept the bid from Julson. Is there a second? Thorpe seconds. Again, the bid is for $19,500 and it is for an audit which would cover the 2 school years ending in 2020 and 2021. And we would not expect to get a final audit before May, June. Yeah. All right, is there any other discussion? Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, or should we do a roll call? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion passes. The audit is approved. Is there any need to rescind our?
we didn't sign anything at all. It was just a verbal, yes, we approved it and we'll apply. He sent out an email with a letter stating that he is declining or removing his services and that, people assist people in finding other auditors and different things like that. So, yeah, he is pretty much broken or like rescinded everything out of it.
Okay. All right. Let's move on then to B, the proposed calendar change. Okay, there's nothing in our packet on that except what was in your report.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll let you lead on that.
So we met as the district design team and we created I always mix up the word because there's so many different ones, the PCBL progressions. And that has been completed. We now need to roll that out to our staff. So we were looking at a district design team, what would be our best way to be able to roll that out to all staff. And one of the ways what we looked at was to take one of our early out days and move that to a full PD day, so that way that we could roll that out in the morning and then still do our early out stuff in the afternoon. It would be all one day. The drawback to it is that we found out that we were thinking December would be a good day. That's what we kind of all decided. And that was December 6th, I think was, no, 7th, right? December 7th, which is a Tuesday, which we all kind of like, oh yeah, the kids are gonna come to school, then we're gonna take them off a day and then bring them back to school, and kind of breaks up the week. So we were kind of debating that anyways, if we want to try and switch that to Monday. And then we found out that our convening for Fargo was actually going to be that same day, that 7th and that 8th. So that's why we're asking for a full PD day on December 6th, which would then give the students a 3-day weekend instead of 2-day, and come back for a day and then having a day off. That makes sense. Any other questions, please ask.
How is that going to affect the high school music concert?
Yeah.
I did talk to Mr. Lean, or excuse me, to Colt. Yeah.
That's Mr. Lee.
I visited with him and he, at first he's like, man, that's gonna make it a little bit harder. And I was like, well, I said, you can still have the kids come in. If you need to take time off during our afternoon PD to go ahead and meet with that, we're changing things on you. So we have to understand that, respect that too. And he's like, actually, the kids wanted to eat at the meal with their families because they're trying to tie in a meal this year to that.
That's why I got a message about potatoes.
So I've heard they're trying to tie that in with it. And he said that actually might work out really good because now they can come and practice and have that half hour to go eat with their families before the concert. So he actually kind of was acceptable, accepting this quite easily.
Do we lose students though because of the long week?
We shouldn't, because I think that's part of their grade.
Right, I get that. It's supposed to be, yes.
Yeah, it's supposed to be part of their grade.
But so originally there was going to be school on Tuesday. It was just going to be an early out.
Right.
On Monday,
On Monday,
and Tuesday will be a full day.
yes.
If we do this full day, it's gonna take out some early outs later on then.
No, we have enough time built into our schedule that we can absorb that into our schedule if we needed to. I think there's still plenty of days where if we wanted to, if we were to move forward with this and say we have a snow day, we still have days that would be built into our schedule to cover those as well. So it wouldn't be taken away from any of those days that are on the site. Like I know earlier we talked about putting policy together so we can do virtual days instead of snow days, we do virtual days. And we would still be able to cover those as I'm just having a hard time. There would still be days where we would be able to not have to make those dates up if we needed. There's plenty of days built into the calendar at this point. That makes sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, that part, I just didn't know if this 10 hours or 12 hours, or I should say 8 hours of professional development is just gonna be added. It's not gonna be taken away somewhere else, the
No.
time slot for that.
No. There'd be additional training for our teachers so that they're doing the best for our students. Okay.
Okay, so the proposed calendar change is to have no school in session on Monday, December the 6th for students, but it would be a professional development day for all teachers, paras, other staff.
I believe it's mostly teachers, but parents would probably be coming in.
And what about others like custodial? They are able to work? or-
Yeah. They'd still be-
Okay,
Especially with concert, I'm sure. they can
Sure.
stuff to set up.
you'll find stuff for them to
Oh,
do,
yeah.
no doubt. Okay,
And it's gonna be the high school concert, I mean, or elementary.
High school.
and then that would be, instead of an early out on Tuesday the 7th, that would be a full day of school. So replacing an early out day with a full day of PD. All right,
Has this been reviewed with the teachers? I know that was a shortage of daycare. Are they gonna get daycare to be here for this whole day?
So I'd have to
When
turn
it's
to my
school age
principals on
children?
that, but
No. Because then-
We haven't, you know, I think we're just waiting to see if you guys would okay it, and then we would give it for our board.
There's such a daycare shortage that.
the nice thing is if we had to, we could bring the kids here.
the staff kids and
Right,
hire
Right.
some peers and.
right. It's different if they're teaching or if they're coming in for PD, they could bring their kids with. And we've had that in the past where they bring their kids with.
Are you talking about our students? Because they're our students, right?
Correct, the teachers that have young kiddos that go to daycare, or that don't normally go to daycare at school.
Oh, I see what you're saying,
So
yeah.
the teachers have to be here for PE,
Yes.
where those kids gonna go.
Most daycare don't take
They don't, they don't have to. room for them.
Okay, any other questions? Is there a motion to approve that proposed calendar change? Nagel moves to approve the proposed calendar change that we've discussed. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Rosendahl seconds the motion. Is there any discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? April, please call the roll. Sorry.
Where's my list? Robert,
Yes.
Sheila,
Yes.
Monica.
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Sonia.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. And the calendar change is approved. All right, re-entry plan review was in your packet. Okay, so this is required after 6 months or?
Every 6 months, we have to review this. That's the federal guidelines. I believe it's till 2023. We have to review this until, it might be 22. It's fire, it's out there way. So either way, it's something we have to continue to do as long as we're receiving the federal funds. We have to continue to monitor and review this every 6 months. We can do it more, but we can't do it less than that. I did pull the wellness committee because it kind of felt like it was something, since they're set with the re-entry, but not with the whole COVID thing. The whole COVID piece would be more the administration working together because we can monitor on a daily basis. I don't feel like our wellness committee needs to be put under that monthly or weekly meeting to be able to determine if what we're going to do moving forward. I know that was one of the questions that came up, but the wellness committee did review this, so that way it was more than just us administration reviewing it. And they did make a recommendation to leave this as is because of the less confusion. One of the things that did come up, I received an email from a request of how do we address our students that are immunocompromised, and that was one of the concerns that we did have to look at, and we reviewed that. After the discussions, it sounded like we were going to look at that more as a 504, a medical 504. That's something that should be done with the school separately. It's not something we need to make a whole big plan for. It was something that we would do separately. It made a lot more sense to do it that way to us with the wellness plan. Other than that, I don't think there's any other really discussion on it. That was the day Monica got caught in the train.
I feel like they don't believe me.
You know, those trains are used for excuses a
I
lot,
held up the
so.
meeting by 12 minutes.
We believe you because it was the buses were caught as well.
We've had backup.
Yeah.
So how are we doing with our COVID numbers? I mean, are we seeing a lot of kids out?
I haven't seen like today or yesterday, but I know as the day that we put this together, the wellness committee, it was 2 in the school.
So it's not,
Right, and actually those probably dropped off. I think there might have been a couple over the long weekend that might have created some more, but I don't.
hasn't been a huge issue.
I haven't seen any. That's why I think it's more of an administration decision to monitor that closely, and if we need to call emergency board meeting.
Right.
But at this point, I think numbers have been pretty good.
Is the COVID, the school COVID dashboard on the state, is that accurate? I think months ago when that came out, it wasn't. And now I looked at it one time and
I guess I'm with you. I don't really monitor the states. I look at what ours is here at school.
that's the one I'm asking about.
I just
Are you,
monitor, I
that's
monitor what comes through our doors.
internal, okay. How does the data get populated at the state?
I'm gonna guess something with the state gets notified of. Because a lot of times it'll go through the state, and the state goes to the county, and the county comes to us, but there's a lot of times where it's reversed in the county. I just know that's on the medical side, and I let them take care of it.
All right, so the board needs to approve or not the re-entry plan or reaffirm the entry plan. Is that a good term for it?
Yeah.
Because we're not proposing any changes.
Correct.
All right. Is there a motion regarding the re-entry plan review?
I will move to
Heimbach moves to approve affirm the re-entry plan. Is there a second? Nagel seconds. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any more questions or discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion passes. All right, next item is the superintendent evaluation. Thank you all for your timely completion and submission of them. I put them together, sent them back. You had an opportunity to review them. I did bring it into Mr. Getz one day and we talked about it briefly and left him a copy. No, I emailed it to you, I think. First, I'd like to ask, first of all, no, everyone rated Mr. Getz satisfactory in all 10 domains, and there were numerous comments made on each. First, I'd like the board to, if anyone on the board would like to pull out one or all of the domains to vote on separately, I would entertain that request. If there is no such request, then we will act on all 10 domains in one motion. And that is, we are not completing an overall evaluation. we are completing the evaluation in each domain. But since no one rated him unsatisfactory, then I think we can safely go ahead and act on them all at one time. Is there any request to act on any domain, any or more than one domain separately? If not, I will entertain a motion to evaluate Superintendent Getz as satisfactory in all 10 domains that we reviewed.
I'll make the motion.
Rosendahl moves to evaluate Mr. Getz as satisfactory in all 10 domains. Is there a second? Heimbach seconds. All right, there were, as I said, numerous comments. Does anyone want to highlight any comment that they made or that they noticed that someone else made that they found interesting? Or is there any issue that anybody wants to take with the comments, the ratings, and any?
I think it was stated over and over that we all appreciate how you're taking these building issues head on, ensuring that they're completed. Been a lot thrown at you from the start, so that's appreciated.
Is there anything that stood out to you?
Monica, I appreciate that, but I assure you that the great staff that is here is helping that tremendously.
For sure.
All right, any other questions or discussion? Any other questions or discussion?
Maybe we should have some.
Come on, bring something up here. All right, if no other discussion, we will have a roll call vote on the evaluation of Superintendent Getz as satisfactory in all the domains that we evaluated. Brian?
Yes.
Robert?
Yes.
Sheila? Yes. Monica? Yes. And Sonia? Yes. Motion passes 5-0. Next item is the item we added, which you've all been waiting for, more information on sewer pipes. And Mr. Getz sent out, okay, it was an attachment to an email called Oak School District Sewer Repair Proposal Phase 2.
I don't even know where to start with that. It's just been a really confusing, when we went down and we were trying to find it. And I know I did ask Brian to come in because he was part of the buildings and grounds. I knew Robert was busy with trying to get harvest done. That's important to be able to do that. So I did ask Brian if he was able to, and gracefully he was able to come and help. I think Dave and I spent probably a total, and probably more so Dave than I, about a day's worth of just trying to investigate where different pipes ran. And after finding out that the pipe was collapsed, they were working with Kevin, David working with Kevin. I know he had some staff that was working with Kevin to just really try and figure out which pipes are going where, how to connect to these different pipes. And I'm not gonna lie, Kevin did a lot of work to just try and get this estimate put together and did not charge us. I know that I asked Dave to try to get some extra quotes. He did make a couple phone calls. Two of the places said that they would be charging us to come out and give us a quote, and there's no guarantees that they can actually do the job. One company did say that if they were able to do the job, then they would negotiate to take that off the price of the job itself. And I was like, well, thanks, but is there a guarantee that you're gonna actually be able to do the job? And I said, no, not until we come out and we look at it and investigate it some more. So those were also sites that are companies that did not burst pipe in, they would reline pipe. And as you've seen, there's quite a bit of mess in the pipes that we have. We would be needing to, I know that we kind of talked about what is the best game plan moving forward after we reevaluate and everything. And we thought that at one point we were outside thinking we were almost done. And then some guy came up, and you guys have to remember, I don't remember his name, so I apologize, but he came walking over to us and he goes, you guys got a classroom flooded? You got water running outside your building. And that's how the extent of our sewer problems is. We have water running outside our building because of our sewers, our pipelines are just getting that old. They've all lived their life, and I know Kevin had mentioned that this summer that there's a lot of stuff that is beyond its life, and we're starting to see those issues. That's good, which is really stinky. Yes. There was one company that did say it's a third company, and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but they were planning to come out this afternoon to evaluate and start investigating. It took them 4 days. We called them on Thursday last week. You got a hold of them?
Yes.
So it's taken that long for a team to come out and give us an estimate. Where I will say Kevin was really great on getting here within an hour and a half, I think it was, because he comes from Fargo. He's done an excellent job that way. And he's also got a quote to you guys for meeting there. So I did email that quote to you. I don't think it's something that we need to do everything on here. I think Ryan would agree with us, agree with what I'm saying there is the lines that are vertical, they're still flowable. They're just oxidizing inside there. So eventually they're going to leak, but they would be internal leaks we would see inside the school. So we are going to want to look at those eventually. One is still able to line, and that would be the line from the roof all the way down to the 8-inch drain. That one could be relined if we decided to do that at this time. I don't know at what point is it too far gone to where we're going to have to not be able to do that and replace that. That would be the question that we want to really look at. And if you're looking at the quote, I probably should make copies, I suppose. Are you able to see the quote? Oh, there we go. Okay, so the evacuation site 1. It's outside on right by the boulevard, so it'd be right under the concrete on the north side of the building. I should explain this, back up a second. In the high school, everything is split. You have a north side and you have a south side. So everything that we're looking at on the north side is almost identical to the south side. Maybe a little bit different in aspects where it's coming from, but we do have a normal split. There's an 8-inch pipe that goes out the south side as well. We're just talking about just the north half of the high school. But that evacuation site 1 is for them to dig down outside at the end of the 8-inch pipe if we were to replace that 8-inch pipe. Because we do know that there's a lot of tree roots and there was a hole in it at one point, is that right? I remember right between you two?
Yeah.
There's an actual hole in the side of the pipe. So those are all starting to be collapse points. And if we don't replace that, what we have to remember is that that pipe runs all the water on the north half of the high school from rain, winter runoff, all that runs through that pipe. So if that would collapse outside anywhere else, that means everything's going to back up from that point forward. Either it's going to flood out the basement, it could flood out the floor, wherever the next weakest point is in the pipe is where that's going to flood out. Does that make sense? So that's why we were looking at replacing that pipe as well, to make sure that we don't have that backup.
And is it, would you say that all of these pipes that are being looked at are 100 years old?
I would guess that, right? They're probably better.
The maintenance, yeah, the 8-inch maintenance, yes. Some of the other ones aren't.
Yeah, there's a couple that have been
Stuff
added.
just doesn't last anymore.
Yeah, there's a couple that have been added. Let's see if I can remember right here. So the evacuation site 2, that is basically on the, probably easier to go over and explain it. Visual, it's very complicated. The 3rd floor and the 2nd floor have bathrooms on that north side, and they're the boys' bathrooms over there. Those come vertically down and they end right underneath the stairwell in a little closet. That's where this evacuation site number 2 is. We can, if you want to go after the board meeting, we'll walk around. I can definitely take you out and show you everything. But that would need to be dug out so that we can get our new pipe on that line going into the 8-inch main. So our thought was get all these, because everything's running into 8-inch main at different points anyways. We would need to abandon some of all these other lines that are running to that old 8-inch main if we replaced the new 8-inch main. Does that make sense? Did I say that correctly? So if we replace the 8-inch main, we have to replace all the lines that go to it. Well, instead of digging more holes under, it's easier and probably faster for us to take the 5 lines and move those to the new main. So, and they would be exposed in our cell downstairs, the cellar. I call it the cellar. I know it's not the sub. The sub. Okay. So the segment 1 that
sewer reline segment 1. That is to bring all 5 of those pipes in. I know Dave and I were down there and he really didn't take any measurements when he did this. He was just kind of throwing an estimate. He said, I want to make sure I'm high rather than coming back to you. I know when Dave and I did it, we were thinking it was probably gonna be closer to about that 140 feet instead of the 200 feet that he has on there. So that would probably drop that down quite considerably if he, once he's completed. The sewer line segment 2, that is the actual 8-inch main itself. So that's replacing from downstairs in the sub out to the side of the street. Because we didn't go all the way to the street because that's the city's side. And that is the next segment. Segment 3 is, that's where Ryan was talking about earlier. And if anybody, I don't think it was here, the camera couldn't get through all the way to go out to the city main because they got caught there in the transition there. So once we get that transition fixed, there would be a hole right there. It's a lot cheaper for the city to be able to, because that's one of the things we were talking about. Do we have the city come in with a new main so that we have a new connect? It'd be like a new service, or do we just get down in there and say, instead of tearing up the street and everything, we go to the city and say, if you want, we would have them continue this job here. It costs you $18,000 to do that. But if you look at tearing up the concrete or the roadside and putting on a new road and digging up the hole and doing a whole new main or new connect, it'd be a lot cheaper to do it this way. Now it reline from the boulevard to this city.
So was that work done like 15 years ago over a period of 3 or 4 years? I thought nearly every street in town had been dug up and everything had been replaced. Is that true?
I'm trying to remember if we did the main going this way. I know that it started down by the school.
Everything else.
But yes, but I know the water
That
main.
way, because I know when we lived on Main.
Yes. So I know the water mains have been replaced. And when they do the water and sewer mains, they go up to the connection. So I don't know if this chunk was redone, if it was considered good enough. We'd have to go back and have Pat look at the maps, but it would have been one that would have been considered, I guess, new enough to not have to be replaced. But I do know that they're doing water and sewer work coming up this summer with the ARPA funds. So that might be on the schedule too, but yeah.
So that, just so you're aware, we would not be doing that piece, that segment 3, that would not be us, that would be if the city chose to do that. We had them throw it in there so that way it would be, the sewer would be completed. And if something comes back and the city is planning to do that, that's perfect. It just helps us out more. Our look is to get it to the boulevard, and the boulevard to the city would be, we looked at it, that would be their responsibility. Segment 4, that is, there's a sink on the 3rd floor that's dropping down into the pipe that's collapsed now. That would be the 3rd floor. But that was 2nd floor on Larry's office in that 2nd floor. The sink that drops down, there's a sink that drops down.
There's a sink, but there's not a bathroom. I'm just asking.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is the one that leaked out the side of the building.
Yeah, Reed has a note under the boys' faucets are leaking outside. That's the 3rd floor.
Yes,
That's the 3rd
third
floor.
floor boys bathroom, the faucets up there is what we left running.
Right.
While we were down here assessing, we thought we were done, and that's when we left those faucets run up there because we had been trying to decide where everything was connecting down there. While we'd gone outside, then somebody walked by and said it was quite extensive water coming out up there. I mean, it was probably, we ran into Norm's room a little bit, you know, through the windows. So it was just running down the side. So there's obviously a bad connection. I suppose kids go up there and wash their hands a little bit, shut it off, and you don't notice it. But when you let the water run for half an hour, you know, we have fire coming down the building.
So that's the fixed stat leak up there on the floor. Sorry, I know I always think it's something different, but that he's got it down for roughly 20 feet down. And that's the pipe, the vertical pipe that I was talking about that runs from the bathrooms to replace. That would be part of that pipe being replaced. He needs to be able to tie onto something that's good. So he doesn't know how much of that is going to be falling apart from the oxidization. So he would be replacing some of that pipe at that point in time. And he's got approximately 20 feet on there. The next section down is and this is why there was it's number 2, is because he forgot about this piece. The bathroom line, and this is not something that I know when we were all kind of talking, it's not something that has to be done right this second. We could wait a little bit longer. The hard part is that it doesn't, it depends on how far down we go with that 3rd floor bathroom that needs to be replaced and get those leaks fixed. So we don't have water running outside the building anymore. So that's where segment 5 comes in, is replacing that pipe from there down to the hole that's being dug underneath the stairwell. So it'd be that vertical line going from floor to floor. The segment 6, that's going to be the to just line, because we're able to line that one from the roof all the way down to that 8-inch main for the roof drain. I know that was a very complicated explanation, but it may be more complicated when you get down there and start looking at what we're doing.
So of the items listed here with dollars beside them, which did you, was it sewer reline segment 2, the 8-inch? Was that the one you said would not be?
So the ones that you could get by without. would be
Which
this.
one was, you thought would be okay, city segment 3. So segment 3, we thought would be city responsibility.
So the
And
line,
that is $18,000.
and I just asked Pat, and that sewer line is new, so it was done on our major water and sewer replacement. And I just asked him, because most of the time when you do the sewer main, you do the line up to the curb stop area. So he's gonna check to see. So there would be nothing for the city to do with the line, show that it was replaced.
And if that's the case, that would be great, because we couldn't get into that because there was a change in elevation. Right. We couldn't get a camera in there.
So then that part's out.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
So 18,000.
we just did it.
Which
So
wouldn't
it
have been ours anyway.
wouldn't
We
have been ours
did it.
anyways.
Right.
So
That
they,
board, find some way to get rid of that board.
That's the hardest, that's the one that we're here for.
right, but, and you're, as you said, that Kevin is trying here to estimate on the high side, so we don't have bad surprises.
Right, and as you remember last time, in the project that he was doing over here, before we started running into all our problems, we were actually on track to be able to get some money back. So it wouldn't have cost us as much. It was once we ran into all our problems is what started adding in all the extra dollars.
And then
Just so you're aware.
the last 2 items, segment 5 and 6, are those that you say could wait. And if, is it possible that if we wait, it would be more costly later? I mean, they've already mobilized, it's going to have to be done sometime. Is there any reason not to do it now?
I don't know, what's your guys' take on it, Dave? And
I would say the section 6 would be not really
I didn't think so either.
needed. I mean, it's the pipe that carries water from the roof down, so it's used when it rains. So it's not, and it's a vertical pipe, so it's not like it's running horizontally all the time. It's only when it rains, so it's not a high use pipe. Would be my thought. And it's easily accessible from the basement. So we could do it anytime.
Easily replaced in the future.
I think so.
I would agree with that 100%. And to be honest with you, everything's shooting straight down. There's no turns.
Right. So yeah, there's no, so
But segment 5, which he has in at only $5,000, more critical, less easy to repair later, or
I think that one's gonna be the nice thing about that is it's gonna show up coming out like the side of the building. That's what you're seeing. You're gonna be able to see that happening where we could replace it. Is it gonna cost us more down the road? Kevin's been pretty good about not really charging us a mobilization fee. At least I don't remember seeing one.
no, it's included.
It's all.
It's included.
We called it 25% for the mobile, so you price 25% is mobilization. mobilization, 6% to like material delivery.
That's when he's asking for payment.
Right.
Yep, but that's how it is.
What are you recommending then for us? I mean, we need to do some work here.
We do.
We can't do nothing.
And I guess that's where maybe Dave and Ryan, after you've seen the pipes and stuff, would maybe have a better recommendation. But at this point, I know we are supposed to be having somebody come this afternoon. If we wanted to have that second bid, we could definitely look at that. I think Kevin has done an excellent job for us at this point. He's showed up when we need him to show up. I know it took him longer in the elementary than what we expected, but at the same time, we haven't had any trouble over there, which has been nice this year. My concern is that if we wait too long, we got a bid, we asked this person to come give us a bid that's coming this afternoon. We asked them to come last Thursday, and our soonest they would be here is today, this afternoon. Makes me a little bit concerned, because if we have an emergency with this, how fast are they gonna get down here to take care of us? Where it seems like Kevin has really kind of dropped things to come down and take care of us. I don't know if that's something that's gonna be there forever, but he does. Maybe that's because he knows there's more work to be done here quite heavily. But so far, he's.
Follow the cash.
Dave, your take on what's happening with Kevin?
Yeah, he's showed up, and I mean, he's done a good job as far as but I honestly still think that just you should get another quote or two, probably two. Then you all know if the trouble is, it was it Laney's. Laney's was free, I think. That's it's coming today, and then the H.A. Thompson's son doesn't burst pipe. They just line it. And place some here. So, and the other guy is going to charge. I wrote it in my board report, but that was roughly, I think that would come out to about $1,500 fee to have him come in. But I'm not. When you're talking $100,000 or whatever, $1,500, you might save that quite quickly too. But we don't know that. That's something you gotta decide.
But were they one that wasn't sure they'd be able to do it?
No, that guy actually called me again.
That was H&A, right?
Was FM drain cleaning.
The other thing you have to worry about is our bidding. So if it's not deemed an emergency, if it's greater than 50,000, we have to go by the Spark Century Code, which does require us to get multiple bids.
Just take water money outside.
I think we
So
should.
that's what, like, that, just keep that in mind of when we're looking at this, that, yeah, anything over 50 would be required.
So we have an additional firm coming this afternoon.
Around noon.
Clearly, we should see what they say. Is it necessary, prudent to get a third one, even if we can pay for it, and how long would that take?
I don't know if you need to get a third one. I think I would, and I'm sorry, Dave, to overstep on your statement there, but I think as long as you have two, as long as they're bidding apples for apples, I think that's important as well. If you're going to have somebody come in and say, oh, we can do it this way, or we can do it that way, is that because they're trying to undercut another person's job to make sure that they get a job and bid it cheaper? Cheaper is not always easier, or always the best way to go, just because of the fact that it can be a Band-Aid put onto it that they're trying to fix. I've seen too many times where sewer problems have been fixed by another sewer company because they didn't do it right. It was the cheaper way, but it wasn't the right way.
So with drain services, is the first project that he did for us. There's a 50-year warranty on the work, which I presume will also be would prevail here as well. And when we employed them for the elementary project, we were expecting they were going to be in and out of here in a week or 10 days, and it took 3 weeks. what is his timing outlook for this project?
Yep, I did ask him that because I was like, I bet you they're gonna ask me the timing. So I called him yesterday, talked to him, and he said, what, he feels, he agrees with us that water running on the side of the building that's an emergency. We need to get this done ASAP. And so he would hopefully have that completed by the start of next week as well. His goal was to, it'd be kind of in phases, if that makes sense. And if everything goes well, that piece would be completed by next week. At least so that we can use it and make that usable. The other piece, he was thinking by the rest of it, we would have done by December 3rd.
But the water on the side of the building is fixing isn't the most critical part, the actual sewer where it's. the bathroom. Yeah, and that's not the first thing you can fix then.
Right. The water running out the side of the building was, and I think Ryan would agree too, that was the most important because if we need to get by without a bathroom, we have another bathroom we can use until that's fixed. Just like we did with the elementary, there was another bathroom we could use until it was fixed. Is it an emergency? Yeah, it's still an emergency, but it's not as crucial as something having water running out and we're going to get looking at freezing temperature at some point.
Well, if we act on this today and say, go ahead with this, then there's no reason to get the second proposal this afternoon, but we don't want to, I mean, we want to do something.
Right, and here's my recommendation, I guess, I know you asked for it, and I kind of scooted around it because I'm nervous to make a trigger with 130, 120 some thousand on the table, but my recommendation would be to give Dave, myself, maybe one other board member the opportunity to look at the other bid. And if we need to call another emergency, we would call that, but look at the other bid and determine who is our best situation to go with.
And what I've got here is a total so far of 134, 500, is that what? Okay, and when I'm taking the 18,000 off, that isn't needed, right?
Yep.
And 5,000 and 12,500 that can wait, that's 35,500, so we're down to around 100,000.
But 99 is what I
Yeah.
came up with.
Yeah.
5 or something. 99.
And you know, it needs to be done sometime. Stuff just doesn't last more than 100 years, I guess, but
Where would the 100 come from?
But I did talk with April about that, and it's really, doesn't matter where it comes from, no, but we were kind of discussing some options of how to go forward. One of the things is we could go into a debt to where we spend down some more of our carried over. And then next year, we would have to reevaluate what we're doing for taxes. There's that option. So we'd increase the building up to 20 instead of the 17 that we have now next year. So then we'd have to try and recoup back that. The other option that we kind of discussed was, we know that there's going to be more sewer problems. Maybe we need to get a price on what all of our sewer fixes are going to be. And we go out to the city and go to a bond at some point here in the near future. And we encompass this back into it. So you could take out a loan and then encompass that back into that bond.
we've already discussed potentially using up to half of the special reserve, but that may have been necessary already with the first state phase of
That's
the talks. And that it's 229, so about 115,000, excuse me, will be used, and we could draw another half of that next year.
I just think we gotta have somewhat of a plan, especially if you said we've only looked at half of what. So now all of a sudden we use up everything and that happens on the other half.
Well, and wasn't there was more identified in the late summer exploration than what was done before.
Yeah, we still would have the west wing of the elementary. I know we did some patchwork, patchwork that's already been done, knowing that we need to do something there. He didn't even charge us for any of that. No, he did. He did charge us for that, right? It's like,
He just gave lump sum, so I don't know how he broke up the last one.
I think he did charge us like 2,000 or 3,000 for that. But we do have the south or the west wing of the elementary that hasn't been cut yet. And you know, that direction. We would have the south side of the high school yet to look at, and then we'd have, I don't know if we would get to go too heavily into the gyms, but we have those as well.
All right, so your recommendation is that the board authorize Dave, and say Ryan to evaluate the second, a second proposal, and then make a recommendation to the board, possibly for a special.
Yeah, that would give us the authorization to be able to accept one.
Okay.
Unless there is a big discrepancy, then bring it back to the board. That's kind of where I was going with it. If it's close, maybe it's up to us to decide which one to decide.
This probably isn't answerable, but how long, once Lainey gets here and looks over everything this afternoon, how long will it take to get a bid proposal?
I guess I thought later today.
Oh, you think they'd do it that quick?
That's what we're hoping for.
I swear to God.
It took Kevin.
Or they may roll their eyes and say, this isn't our, we can't.
Gotta touch it.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we gotta, if they're already coming.
Yep, we got it.
I would like to at least honor that.
Sure.
I would just tell them that you're at your meeting with a board member at such and such date and time, and if they don't submit it, then they're considered not a viable bid. I mean, give them a deadline, and it's on them, then, so if they don't submit it, then you know that you can move forward.
And again, Kevin's proposal to us, he represented that he's trying to be on the high side.
Yes.
So we're without the things that are not needed, we're at just under 100,000, and it could be, 10-15% less than that, we hope. But there could also be surprises the other way.
There could be. I mean, there's, like there was in the elementary.
I'm thinking
There's
that's not a
possibility.
good business situation.
Yeah.
How is it going to affect the day-to-day ongoing high school with this construction going on? I know in elementary, the kids have to go outside and.
There shouldn't be anybody going outside. We should be okay there.
Classroom's gonna be affected.
The stairwell on the west side in the lower, so they went to the special ed area down there, that will be affected more on that side. Yeah, I'm sure there's gonna be people walking in from the south side as well, by in between the two buildings, or 12, I think it is. Yeah, it's probably easier to go over and just explain it, because it's so confusing there, but so that hallway would probably be constructive work, but you'd still be able to get into the hallway.
I just don't want to be part of other like lunch ladies wanted to do to us.
Yeah. Our special ed, I think, would be upset, but if we were to tell them they're not gonna have their bathroom, they would probably be extremely more upset, along with their kitchen that goes with the living skills that are needed with some of the courses.
He anticipates us being done.
It all depends on how everything goes. We are dealing with 100-year-old pipes, and you never know.
All right, so we've had a lot of discussion, and the recommendation is that the board authorize the subcommittee administrator, and let's point to Ryan. He's the pipe guy.
Sure.
Okay. To evaluate the next bid and evaluate whatever is given to us and make a recommendation. Is that what we're seeking?
You want a recommendation, or do you want us to get them rolling on it? So we can, my thing is that the sooner we get them going, the sooner we can get it fixed. And we got a freezing weather that's gonna be coming anytime.
We gotta let the other company come. If they're coming. we gotta
That's
see
what I mean.
they're
So
saying.
let us make a call off of those two, instead of having to call a meeting before we can make that call. We can still report back to the board what we do, but at least so that we can get a call going. Does that make sense?
And with an expenditure of potentially $100,000, is that a legal, because it's an emergency, is that a legal means of going about this? For our,
We're covered up to, I think, 150 with the emergency.
all right, is there a motion?
I would ask that we throw emergency into that.
Okay, use that word, emergency.
somehow.
I would make that motion and all that above that be that And we look at the other bids and make a recommendation or a decision based on $100,000 or less figure.
Okay, and that includes that this is an emergency due to the.
Correct, for the conditions of the.
April, will you read that motion back to us, please?
Sorry,
I did
April.
to authorize the facilities committee to evaluate proposals and approve emergency repairs or make recommendations.
Up to 100.
Up to
To
$100,000.
approve up to or make recommendations to the board.
Sound good? All right, is there a second?
I'll second that, baby.
Nagel seconds the motion. Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any more discussion or questions? All right, one more time, April, would you read the motion back and then take a roll call?
To authorize the facilities committee to evaluate proposals and approve emergency repairs up to $100,000 or make recommendations to the board.
All right, roll call, please.
Monica? Sheila?
Yes.
Robert?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Sonia?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. Good discussion. Okay, thank you, Robert. We'll move on to policies. All right, policies before us today. We have 5 policies on the agenda for second reading and final approval. We had them on the agenda last month. They are virtual learning, weapons prohibited on district property for employees, carrying weapons, GED credit, and weapons prohibited on district property by the public. Is there a motion for second reading and final approval of those 5 policies?
I move to approve the second.
Heimbach makes the motion. Is there a second? Nagel seconds. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. All
All those opposed say no. Motion passes. I forgot to vote. I vote yes as well. 4-0. For first readings, the policy committee recommended nothing that required a second reading, and we recommend 2 policies, GDB, graduation exercises, and GDAA, early graduation, to waive the second reading and make final approval today because of the minimal proposed changes to those policies. Is there a motion to approve those, waiving the second reading? Oh, yes, one of them we need to make a decision.
I'm not the motion.
Okay, Rosendahl moves. Let's talk about GDAA for a moment. There's item 3 highlighted that requires, we can delete it. We do not need to include that. But the candidate must have completed items 1, 2, and 4, but we need to decide if we're going to require a grade point average, and so what that is.
And currently, we do not have that as a requirement.
Okay.
Admin's recommendation there.
What's a GED or the grade point average going to affect having it in there? I don't know if it's going to affect it that much. I think it would be more who that if you're going to put a GPA average in there, where are you going to set it at? Well, you're probably going to set it to a certain point where if you're already asking them to complete these courses, then that's going to meet that GPA anyways. So I think that it's an added piece that really is nonsense. That'd be my recommendation.
All right, is there any interest in including item 3 and a grade point average for the early graduation? Okay, so let's eliminate that from our consideration, and with that, is that all right, Ryan, that your motion would be to approve these 2 policies and waive a second reading without item 3 the grade point average requirement.
Yes.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Nagel seconds. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any further questions or discussion on these two policies for which we are proposing to waive the second reading? Hearing none. April, please, oh no, let's just, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion passes. The policies are approved. All right, moving into the minutes of the October 12th meeting. They were in your packet. Were there any changes or additions? Or is there a motion to approve? Nagel moves to approve the minutes of the October 12th, 2021 meeting. Is there a second? Einbuch seconds. Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Financial reports, there's the reconciliation, the balance sheet, and the revenue and expense report. They were in your packet. Is there any questions or anything you want to highlight?
Nope, I put kind of the notes inside of some of the things that were over budget already. Some of the stuff kind of self-explanatory, right, workforce safety, you know, bill was higher than expected, that type of thing. Otherwise, yeah, I have my notes already on the report.
All right, any questions? Any questions? All right, hearing none. Is there a motion to approve the reconciliation, the balance sheet, and the revenue and expense reports as presented?
I'll make the motion.
Rosendahl moves to approve the financial reports. Is there a second? Einbuch seconds. Any discussion? Any questions or discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion passes. All right, there were bills in your packet that start on page 50. Oh, I have 55. 54. 54 of your packet.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, starts with 2021 MasterCard. And several pages, and there was one more that you sent last night, right?
Yes, yeah.
I'm not sure that I looked at that yet. All right, is there a motion to approve the bills as presented in your packet and the additional invoice listing sent last night? Einbuch moves to approve those bills. Is there a second? Nagel seconds. Is there any discussion or are there any questions? Anything you want to highlight? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion passes. We get to future meeting dates. Thank you, Mrs. Lynch. Tuesday, December 14th at 7 a.m. No, unless we have to have something in response to the sewer proposals, we would not expect to have any need for a special meeting. And I guess we didn't highlight that we have highlighted that we have hired a new head girls basketball coach, and that is Mr. Getz. And I'd just like to say that it's a departure from what we've done since I've been on the board, but I think it's a good thing. I think we explored all other alternatives, which there were very few of, and he desires to do it. He has my support. I know I believe he reached out to all board members and gave them time to think about it and express concerns if needed. So that should start very soon. Monday. Good luck.
Thanks.
All right, any other announcements for the good of the order? Concerns about next meeting date, Tuesday, December 14th at 7 a.m.? If not, I'll declare this meeting adjourned at 8:19 a.m.